continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Well, Trump's tariffs have roiled markets, but we got some good news yesterday. And that is that inflation in February ran cooler than expected. And the bellwether product that the D.C. press corps is suddenly so obsessed about, eggs, we saw price decrease in eggs as well. So happy days are nearing again with prices falling and inflation cooling. That's the good news. The bad news is people have to avert their eyes to look at what's happened to their 401ks over the last couple of weeks. But again, the Scott Bessent, Donald Trump discussion about an adjustment period. We're getting off the dope, the phony sugar high of government cotton candy. And that's one piece of it. And then, the other piece is this trade situation, which maybe progress will be made today when Howard Lutnick meets with Ontario Premier Doug Ford to see if the temperature can be reduced on the relationship and the rhetorical back and forth between the Canadians and the Trump administration. For more on all this, Stephen Moore joins us, economist, author of The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again, co-authored with Art Laffer. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, guys. I've been kind of dreading this conversation, Dan, but go ahead.
You got your inflation number, so that's something to cheerlead.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I think everybody listening to the show has lost a lot of money in the last 2 weeks, unless you shorted the market. So it's been a brutal period, no question about it. I'm not the biggest fan of tariffs, as you guys know. And, there's certainly short-term pain, as Trump said. Trump's line is this is short-term pain for long-term gain. He may well be right. But, boy, the people have lost a lot of money. The business manufacturers and so on are kind of freaked out right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, and markets hate uncertainty. So I'd like to see this resolved as quickly as possible. I do think, by the way, that it will get resolved. I can't tell you if it's going to be tomorrow or next week or next month or 3 months from now. But when it gets resolved, the market will bounce back. So, you might look at this. What's the old saying? Buy low, and stocks are low right now. So, but the tariffs are taxes. It's that simple, Dan. Tariffs are taxes.
Well, Canada imposed a $31 billion tariff on water heaters, computers. They're also slapping American bourbon and Harley Davidson with 50% tariffs. Yeah. And then the EU implemented a $28 billion tariff on beef, poultry, and eggs. And just listen to what Trump said yesterday about the European tariffs.
So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. If they charge us 25 or 20% or 10% or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them. There's nothing more fair than that.
Yeah, it's not a $28 billion, $26 billion tariff. It's tariffs on $26 and $28 billion worth of goods, which you have to look at in the context of a $20 trillion economy. So, there's a little bit of overwrought hysteria too, as someone who also is not a huge fan of tariffs, certainly not to the extent that President Trump is. But I think there's a little bit of fever going around on the Wall Street too, because they're so used to this dope that they've been on.
Well, those statistics, Amy, that you just mentioned, those should cause Americans' eyes to open. The truth is that the United States has the lowest tariffs in the world. There might be a few countries that have lower than we do, but certainly we're way below the tariffs that Europe charges on us. It's also true that we're way below where China is. We're below where Canada is. We're supposed to have a free trade deal with Canada, and yet they're charging over 100% on our dairy products and agriculture. So, look, Trump is basically telling these countries, we're going to charge what you charge, so you better bring your tariffs down because, this is causing problems for the United States. But you want to throw China and Canada into a depression, you deny them access to America's market. So he's flexing our economic muscle, and in the end of the day, he will win. He's going to win. Canada and China and the Europeans will have to stand down. And may I simply say, I'm so sick of these sanctimonious Europeans saying, "Oh my gosh, Trump's causing us trade war." Well,
right.
Wait a minute, their tariffs are 3 times higher than ours, and they're saying we're causing a trade war. I know if you had Donald Trump on your show right now, because I've heard him talk about this in the Oval Office many times, that they started the trade war. We didn't. No, I'm not defending the tariffs. I'm saying there is at the end of the day a light of the tunnel, and these countries are going to have to lower their tariffs. It's that simple.
Well,
and if that happens, we'll have freer and fairer trade.
Well, it isn't fair. We pay 2.5% tariffs on cars coming from Europe, but they charge us 10%.
That's right. How's that fair? That's not a level playing field. Now, I understand.
But
here's the thing.
It's looking at it all wrong, but go ahead.
I know you. So, Dan, you and I love Milton Friedman. He was the greatest economist of the last 100 years. And I know if Milton Friedman were alive right now and he were on this show, he'd say, look, just because these Europeans are shooting themselves in the foot doesn't mean we should shoot ourselves in the foot, right, with tariffs. Because tariffs hurt both countries. And and I used to be a kind of unilateral free trader, and we have benefited from the fact that we are the freest trade country in the world. How do you think we got rich? But on the other hand, is it really fair? I mean, is it fair that these countries abuse us with their tariffs and that we don't strike back? And that's kind of where we are. Reciprocity is what Trump wants. He wants a level playing field, Dan. Are you against that?
I get it, and there's a fundamental philosophical difference that's not going to be bridged, and I'm fine. I'm fine with being on board, and let's see if this approach gets to lowering of trade barriers across the board. And so let's talk about that a little bit, because that's, if you want to be pragmatic, well, then let's talk about being pragmatic. And if the end here is to reduce trade barriers, well, then let's talk about how we get from where we are to there. And so the question is, what is the approach going to be? Obviously, you have Lutnick getting involved. He's meeting with Doug Ford today. Yeah. Scott Bessent, Peter Navarro, the trade rep. These guys. So are they going to be talking to the EU? There's all sorts of leverage that we have that's economic and national security related. I mean, why don't we dispatch these people to bring these Western European countries to the table and say, look, this is where it's going to go. Otherwise, we're going to have problems economically and militarily across the board. So let's start working this out.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think you're going to start to see that immediately. It's a bit of a game of chicken right now.
Yeah.
It's like two cars that are speeding towards each other, and drag cars in there. Which one's going to turn away first? And that's a dangerous game that's being played. But I feel very confident in telling your listeners that Trump will prevail. That these countries will stand down. They will renegotiate some of their high tariffs. But it's a brutal process. Now, Dan and Amy, one of the tariffs that I don't like, that I'm really opposed to, is the steel and aluminum tariffs, because those are not going to save jobs, Dan. And we learned this from his first term. So what happened was, when we put a steel and aluminum tariffs on, I think they were 25%. What happened was we did save some steel and aluminum producing jobs in the United States, in places like Pennsylvania and Ohio, et cetera. But you know what happened to manufacturing jobs?
Yeah.
They went down. They went down. We lost about 4 times more. We saved about 2,500 steel jobs, and we lost about 10,000 jobs in the auto industry, in construction, and so on. And you know why? Because the steel was more expensive. So it's not. I don't like the protectionist tariffs. I don't think they work.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention, all the trade-related jobs at big multinational corporations and stuff, too. I mean, this, look, nobody is more efficient and, frankly, just than the free exchange of goods and services between consenting adults. And so, whether Trump is the guy turning the wheels and pulling the levers or it's somebody else, it's sort of the same hubris. But this is where we're at. I get it. I'm along for the ride. I'm just saying, like, so we better start wheeling and dealing, because I know we're not going to get to, a Milton Friedman paradise of no trade barriers. So let's start with the horse trading to get core industries and core sectors properly calibrate as best they can in the interest of the American producer as well as consumer. That needs to start post haste, because that's ultimately what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's going to be horse trading.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're exactly right. Now, these countries are going to have to come to us. We're not going to go to them. So the ball is in their court now. And I do believe, by the way, that Canada and the Europeans are making a huge mistake in retaliating, because that is not a game that they can win. They can't win that game because the tit for tat hurts them more than it does us. It causes them more pain. Now, look at what's happening. By the way, if you want to see what a master negotiator Trump can be, it looks like we're going to have a peace agreement sometime in the next few weeks in Ukraine. And
well, let's hope.
That is Trump. That's Trump. He told us he could get this done in a few months, and I think he will. So the reason I bring that up is Trump is a very good negotiator. He's the best negotiator I've ever seen in my whole life. You got to read the book, The Art of the Deal, and I think at the end of the day, he's going to get a deal with the Canadians, with the Mexicans, with the Europeans, and with China. But boy, this is exerting a lot of pain. I mean, I lost a lot of money in the last couple of weeks, Dan. Yeah, you're buying dinner the next time we get together.
Fair enough. The CR and the budget, and and Tom Massey being the holdout here, and your view on that, and essentially the Massey argument, which is, look, if the argument is we have to continue Biden-era level spending because we don't have 60 Republican senators now, well, we're not going to have 60 Republican senators in 6 months, so what then? He wants a more aggressive DOJ-adjacent CR and obviously ultimately budget. Who's right there? Is it Speaker Johnson and the White House, or is it Tom Massey? The Howard Rourke of the caucus.
Now is a terrible time to have a shutdown of the government, so we got to get this budget through. Incidentally, one of the really cool things about this budget that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, because you mentioned DOJ, is that this budget, in the budget, it says that the president has the authority to spend less money than is appropriated, which is huge. I mean, that means that Trump can go in and just tell, the Department of Agriculture or the Department of Interior, hey, you're going to spend instead of $100 million on this program, you're going to only spend $80 million on this program. So it does kind of include the opportunity to put the DOJ savings right in the budget. Now, the Democrats are howling about that. I don't know if they're going to allow that to happen, but this would be huge. Any CEO, Amy, any CEO of a company, if let's say you appropriate $10 million for a project, and then your project manager say, it's only cost us $8 million to do this. You wouldn't spend the whole $10 million, right? But that's what happens in the federal government. You have to spend every penny of it. So I think I would pass this bill, get it done. We need to get past the shutdown of the government. And by the way, Dan, I found out a brilliant way how I'm going to become a millionaire. You want to know what that is? You
get $1 million like Steve Martin recommended. Yeah.
That's right. No, I'm going to become an NGO.
Yeah, right.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'm going to become an NGO and get all this money.
Yeah, particularly if you engage in things like the study of the menstrual cycles of trans men. Yeah, that's very lucrative.
Exactly. It's worth $600K, Stephen Moore. Yeah.
This is quite a traumatic period we're in right now in Washington, but my bet, folks, is that Trump will prevail, because he always does. And I think in the end of the day, look at these stocks. There are a lot of cheap stocks out there, folks. I'm not saying we've hit bottom. We may have more to go, but I think 6 months from now, 9 months from now, a year from now, stocks are going to be worth a lot more than they are today. That's my bet.
Okay,
Stephen Moore,
so we have to be patient. Thank you.
Stephen Moore, economist, author of The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. Steve, thanks as always.
Okay, guys. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in